All right, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to belabor the moment. This is what you've been waiting for. This is the first ever convention appearance. Please welcome to stage Mr. Michael Keaton. Haven't said a word, standing O already.
I do.
All right.
I'm sitting? Or
You are, yes. We got nice comfy chairs. The other panelists, they got like the regular chairs.
I'm going to take a nap.
So,
I didn't put these on.
we're here at Alamo City Comic Con, which is San Antonio's convention of note, and this is your first time at a convention where there's obviously the cosplay and costume is a really big popular hobby. I was kind of wondering, in some of your more costume-heavy roles, how did the costume kind of affect your performance or influence how you created your characters?
Well, the prime example is Batman, and I have a mint I'm going to get rid of right here. Hold on a second. In regards to that question, in terms of how you're affected by it, man, I don't know where to start. There's so many. The second one would be Beetlejuice, but Beetlejuice was developed. You know, it wasn't that picture, that imagery was not there. The imagery was nascent. It was in its beginning. It was in Tim's head, but that's not what his original image was. It was a different. It was based on a little character that he would do sketches of, and then as we discussed it and talked about it, and I, quite frankly, I've said this about 8,000 times, I didn't really understand what he was talking about, and I said no to the movie at least 2 times or 3 times, but I liked Tim so much that I said, well, there's something here with this guy. This guy is special. So I said, okay, let's do it. And then I said, just let me, based on a couple things you kind of talked about and discussed, let me go figure this out. So I called, I think Sony, I forget, I think it was Sony, and I said, hey, down the wardrobe department, and I think they still have big wardrobe warehouses. I don't know if the studios have them anymore. And I said, just send me, I want a couple racks of clothes from various periods of time, you know, going back, way back in time, and then futuristic things. And then I just went home and started to work on a walk and a talk, and the mold came from Tim saying in a meeting with him, you know, he lives in all different parts of time. He exists in, you know, he may live underground, you know, he lived, and I thought, underground, okay, you know, you'd get, if you lived forever, you know, came and went, and you lived in underneath, you'd probably have mold. And the hair was really, I knew I was going to start at such a high level. I said, as opposed to coming in here and ramping to that, I'm coming in here and I'm ramping to that. So I said, I want my hair as though, you know, I stuck my finger in a plug and that. So V. Neal and I worked on that. Tim had the thing, he had the striped suit, and he had that, I think, drawn maybe, or he drew it later, I forget. And then the eye thing, the dark eyes was Tim, I think. The other stuff that cut, the hat was me, and the clothing. So that character just, that didn't feel uncomfortable at all. In fact, I'm weird enough to say that felt comfortable. But the Batman thing was a different situation because that was very specific and very specifically designed. And I just showed up and they said, this is what it's going to be. And it was very difficult because that was the first one, and really we only had we didn't know if it was going to work until literally the day before I started shooting. And even on the first couple of days, it wasn't really functioning properly, and it was impossible to move in. And in the old days, in films and in the theater, I think, there were these big boards. If you were doing, trying to think of someone, not King Lear maybe, but if you were in that, some of that old heavy, wardrobe from plays or movies years ago in London and England, and probably in America, they had these things to rest, you'd stand on and take the weight off, you just kind of rock back in a big kind of board like this. And we had to use that because it was, to get in and out of it was difficult. So the movement was very restricted. And I'm a claustrophobic person. So that really was tough. But I had no choice, and I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. So I used that, as actors like to say, but it worked beautifully, because you also couldn't hear very well, and your sight was, confined, and you were restricted in your movements, like being in a straitjacket. And I thought, this is great. This makes me go even deeper into his, into Bruce Wayne's kind of, introversion and his sense of being alone. It was just perfect. So then the physical moves, Tim and I worked out, because if you moved a certain way, you looked ridiculous. So the movements became very, real powerful. So I just, like I said early on, I just worked the suit, man.
Has any of it changed? Because you have the bat suits from then to Birdman and Vulture. How has costume design come along to make it a little easier on you, I would hope?
No, that's interesting. You're right, because we had to be, well, first of all, now it's easy. They just digitize everything. And you almost don't have to wear anything anymore. So, but the Vulture thing, I'm proud to say, same measurements, dude. No, seriously, I was curious. I thought, oh, this is going to be embarrassing. Because they had they digitally measure you. Mm-hmm. And then they built it and slid right in like a motherfucker.
So,
Vulture's a very cool outfit.
It's very cool.
And they just came to me and said, look at this, look at this, look at this. I just put it on, and I thought, this is awesome, this is great.
You've shown an incredible range from, outrageous physical comedy was a calling card for a while, to very dialogue-driven and dramatic. How do you prepare differently for various types of roles?
Just like that, differently. There's no, well, I don't know, I don't think I have one. Well, I probably have, the basic rules that I go by, or laws that I go by. And you do the work, you do the backstory. Didn't have a whole lot of backstory for Beetlejuice, frankly. The great thing about doing Beetlejuice was you could never say, well, my character wouldn't do that. The great thing was my character could do anything. So I think there are basic things I go by, but I always fall back on, stay in the moment, tell the truth, create your own little backstory about, who you are, where you came from, what you want. But everything is, is different. You go from a movie like The Other Guys. Which the other, what you do when you do a movie like The Other Guys, you just try not to laugh all day long. Because it's so much fun to work with those guys.
So speaking of Beetlejuice, contrary to what others may have done in terms of wanting more focus and time, I've read that you gave feedback on kind of limiting Beetlejuice's screen time and maybe some of Batman's lines to kind of create an air of mystery. How do you think that putting the art first was important to creating the end result of those characters?
Well, I mean, those are, and I give this, I guess if somebody wants to give me some credit, I'll take it. But I give a lot of that to Tim Burton, who's my pal and my co-conspirator and a true artist. He's original, he's unique, and he's an artist. So it makes it easier, when you're dealing with somebody like that. But in terms of, I just loved that, Bruce Wayne was limited in his you know, he's economical about things, you know. And in terms of, you know, I don't know, I don't think about this stuff very much, but if you had more Beetlejuice, it loses its flavor. You know, I think the character's only he's not in the movie very much, really. You know, it's Alec and Gina. And you know, because he was such an outlandish character, an outrageous character, he gets a lot of the attention. But when you go back and look at that, that's really a great cast in Beetlejuice.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. How much of that?
And funny. You know, even though I was just riffing from the moment I showed up in the morning to the end. There was some basically really decent comedy in that. And I thought their stuff was written really well.
You know? Absolutely. The talent in that cast. I mean, you've worked in a couple of really, really great, huge, talented casts. It's been very cool.
Yeah, I've been lucky.
I was wondering how much of the finished character of Beetlejuice is Tim's original design on paper, your dive into in character development, and then the combination between the two.
Well, that's what I said. That wasn't really it. You know what I mean? It was kind of, there was something there, but there was enough there from Tim and I kicking around ideas, and he told me basically what he was trying to do. But I mean, then I just, started putting something together. You know, the voice, the walk, the I don't know if people know this, but the teeth were just a little larger. Not only were they, not attractive, they were I remember thinking, there's something really kind of scary about if his teeth were just, like the combination of being a little bit goofy, but like dangerous, that's just really scary to me, which I think is great. You know what I mean? If you ever run into anybody in an alley and he's just a straight ahead bad guy, you go, oh boy, I'm a little scared. But if he's also kind of fucking goofy, and then you go, whoa, now I'm really scared. Because you don't know what he's going to do. No, so there were little things, and then Tim and I, when I mean, I said it 100 times, but we didn't even know the finish. He had already been shooting, and they were shooting in those tremendous sets he created, that world he created. And they'd been shooting, and I wasn't even in the movie yet. And I put this, me and V. Neal, the great makeup artist, and would say, hey Tim, we're gonna do this, what are you thinking? He'd go, yeah, or I'd come in and he'd look and go, oh yeah, that's a cool idea, I like that. Do more of this, or I want that. But it got formed. We never saw it. I never uttered a line. I never did anything until we put the thing together. We never rehearsed anything. There was no rehearsing. And I showed up, so I thought, wow, this is really out there. And this is either going to work, or it's going to be so fun, it's going to be embarrassing. And as soon as I showed up, walked on the set, shot the first scene, and I just went off. I don't think it was I don't know how many kids are here. I should watch my language, actually. But I don't think, what I say when
earmuffs.
I'm sorry, by the way. No, really, I don't like to do that in front of kids. But when I kick the tree over and I say, nice, right. Like, that was it. I think we shot that the first day. So Tim saw it and just went, yes. And then he said, okay, wait, stop, do this, walk over here. When you go up there, turn around, and then he'd move the camera angle. So he just jumped on board. But when I showed up, nobody had seen it or knew what it was going to be, and we just hit it. But he got it. He saw it and then said, oh, okay, now, and then he just added to it and added to it and added to it.
So you have a clear, incredible reverence for Tim. It sounds like you guys have a phenomenal relationship. What was it like when he first approached you for Batman?
I totally got it. I mean, he sent me this script, said, hey, I want to talk to you. The studio's talking to me about doing this movie. I said, cool, and then he tells me what it is. I remember where we were sitting when he said, just go home and read this, and then let's just talk. He started he said, I don't even want to, as I recall, he didn't really want to even talk about it very much. He said, just read this, then I want to talk to you. So, you know, I went home and read it, and once again, that was one where I thought, boy, if this works, this is big. If it doesn't work, it's dismal. It's gonna be embarrassing, but you know, whatever. So I went home and I read it, and I showed up and I said, well, I don't know, this will probably never work, but I said, well, you know, here's my take. He's clearly depressed. It's understandable. He's this. You know, you got to play deep inside. I went boom, 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 boom. I just went down the list thinking, Tim might, I don't know what he's going to say, but the studio will never do this. And so I started talking about, you know, his hair. I just remember him sitting there listening to me and going like this. And his hair was going like up and down because he was so excited. He said, yeah, he couldn't even talk. He said, yes, exactly. That's what I want to do. But I didn't, you know, that's me talking about Bruce Wayne really, and the Batman thing's a different discussion. But he had already seen, you know, and then, you know, he said, read the Frank Miller, you know.
The Dark Knight.
Yeah, Dark Knight, which I didn't even know it existed. And I thought, oh man, this is different. But he and I just got it immediately. You know, then the doing of it was tough. A lot of pressure on him and everybody really.
So in a lot of ways, I think Batman, above all, really kind of gave birth to
everything.
All of the superhero craze. We'll give you that credit, right? We'll give you that.
Not me, man. I mean,
well, everybody, the whole production.
There was none of this without that. But I mean, maybe this, but there was none of all the other movies that he turned it around. He totally turned it around.
Darker, more relatable, little grit.
Yeah, and just all that, and the look he invented. You know, he and you know, all the people. Can't believe I'm forgetting his name now. The great cassette designer man who passed away. What's the matter with me? Yeah. Anton first. And those guys created something, a look that, you know, for a long time, if you go back and look at some of the movies that follow that black, that blue black, you know, that everybody kept saying, it's so dark. It was just, but it had that like, it was a kind of black, you know, the color, the blue, the deep blues and blacks, you know. And then the tone of things and that great score, you know, that Danny did. It made people went, oh, I wasn't ready for that, you know what I mean? And then that just turned. And I'm the least knowledgeable of anybody in this room. Trust me, of all this stuff. You guys know way more than I do about this culture. But I know enough to know that started everything.
Now, you've said in the past that it was a big challenge to film that, and with the way it's kind of gave breath to everything else and how lauded it is, do you look back on it and those challenges any differently now?
Wait, what do you mean?
Just some of the physicality of the role and the cold set and all that.
But do I look at it differently?
It's a little more rewarding now that it's been such a cultural game changer. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. It wasn't, you know, I mean, you know, how hard can it be? It's not like I was working in a coal mine, you know. but yeah, you know, it's a high pressure thing. It was, you know, I was mostly miserable doing it because I was alone and I just had a baby and, you know, back then London was, you know, not what London is now, which is just great. It's kind of like, there were still guys walking around in literally bowler hats and like umbrellas, you know, like, you know, uptight guys from the Victorian era who wouldn't even, you know, like, you know, and the place was so cold and damp and uptight and I didn't know anybody and it was good for the character though. Now it's a different place. It's like walking down, you know, Los Angeles.
Was there anything, having been so synonymous with superhero for a very long time, was there something refreshing about taking on the villain of Vulture?
Yeah, I mean, to tell you the truth, these things are all just, you know, not just jobs like, oh, it's just a job. it's a job. I'm fortunate to get to do what I do, you know, so it's just, you know, somebody said, you want to play this guy? And I met with the director, he seemed cool. The schedule was great. I thought it was a cool idea. Just did it.
What's changed in kind of the superhero set from Batman to the modern MCU?
I don't even know what the MCU is. Yeah, I literally don't.
Didn't totally cross that line, I guess.
What is the MCU?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe. The big Marvel films.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not educated. No, I don't know what. I'm not dissident.
How have those sets kind of evolved over time?
The physical sets? I couldn't. You're asking the wrong guy. I don't know. Sorry, I know that's a disappointment to you, but trust me, man. I don't. I look at the role and I go, yeah, that would be very cool to do, you know. And I'll do that, and I'll just give it everything I got, and then I just kind of move on to the next thing.
So, yeah, right? Look it up. So we talked a little bit about some of the strong ensembles that you've worked with. I mean, Much Ado About Nothing, Beetlejuice, Batman, all of it. How does it absolutely
Paper.
How does it impact working with such a strong group?
You mean how's it? What's the impact on me? It's just like, you know, if you show up and you're on a baseball team or a football team or a basketball team or soccer team or anything, and you're playing with your game just immediately goes up just because you're in that environment, and then you want to keep up with it. So you have to be on your toes. There's not a second to be lazy. Also, there's a real respect, you know, that you're going to give it everything. You know, that cast and spotlight is good. Yeah, and it's great, you know, for a grim subject matter. This is often the case. When I did Clean and Sober, you know, we had a great time, and I know that sounds weird. We had the most laughs on Spotlight because I think when you're dealing with that subject matter, you know, it's too much to let it drag you down, I think. So, you know, those guys are really funny dudes anyway, and you know, that was one of my more enjoyable movies, you know, even though it was about a very, very dark subject.
So let's go to maybe a less dark one, but Much Ado About Nothing. What made that such a fresh experience?
Because I had never. I may as well have been, you know, speaking Dutch. It's literally another language that I was only familiar with because I think I had to take a Shakespeare class in thinking. Really early on, when I was doing a couple television shows or something, some casting director had seen me, and he really wanted me to go to do theater in Denver, and they were doing I forget what Shakespeare play it was, and my knowledge of Shakespeare was thin, and that's being generous. So I wasn't a student or a scholar, certainly, and so, you know, I went and read, it wasn't Henry IV, I forget what it was, but I read it and I thought, oh boy, this is it. I ended up not doing it. So then, at some point, something came up, and I had an acting teacher, and I went to him and I said, hey, I need to learn something from Shakespeare. So we worked on it and talked about it, and I found it really interesting and kind of difficult. So then Branagh comes to me and says, hey, I'm doing Much Ado About Nothing, and I'm putting this cast together, and I want you to do it. And I said, okay. And I had seen his Henry V, which is so good. It's one of the great anti-war movies, and it's really, he had a threadbare budget, and that movie he shot, his first movie, was so good. And I was knocked out by it, and I said, I'm not your guy. I'm not a Shakespearean actor. And he said, no, I don't want anybody to be like that. And so he said, just read it with me. And I read it, and he told me he was going to be in the cast. So I thought, oh boy, that's a good cast. You know, Denzel was going to do it, and he said, no, I want the Americans. I don't want I don't want English accents. I don't want anything. And I said, okay. And I read it, and I thought it was horrible, truly horrible. I thought, there's no way I'm doing this. And I said, no. There was a woman who was a friend of mine, and she was a writer and a comedian named Valerie Bromfield. And Val is, but her and her sister are like two of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. And she's from Canada, and Danny Aykroyd was her partner for a while before Danny Aykroyd was doing Second City. I think before he was, they had a comedy act up in Canada. And I got to know Val. And she and I used to do these characters, these guys talking. So I went home and I thought, you know, maybe this is a chance to use that guy. And there's a little bit of an Irish thing in it, a little bit of a tiny little bit of brogue in it. And I learned later that, in fact, a lot of Shakespeare's actors, were really working class people, were really attracted to his plays. But there was a Celtic thing in a lot of his plays. So I don't know. I just created this thing, and once again, I came up with, you know, the fake horse thing, and also my dad knew there was a guy in my neighborhood named Jack Planick, and he was what they used to call Justice of the Peace. I don't even know if they have Justices of the Peace anymore. But he's kind of like, he's given kind of like some authority, which is bullshit authority. And this guy was kind of a bullshitter. And he was kind of like a fake guy. And so I thought, yeah, I remember Jack Planick, I remember this guy. So I thought about him, and then I just invented the rest. And it was, to learn the language was so fun and difficult. I can tell you're thrilled because you're reading your phone. But that's okay. So that's how that came to be, and you know, we just invented. You know, I don't know. But you had to stick to the rules. That's what was great about it.
It was such an iconic role. Really
yeah, and you go, well, I can't really, you know, I'm not going to, you know, improvise here. It is what it is, and you have to learn the language. Like Birdman, we had to know every word. We had to know every single. You had to be letter perfect. There was no riffing in that movie. That is, you had to be spot on, you know, and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. Otherwise, you can't make that movie. And those are good. That was a good lesson for me. I was getting spoiled by people letting me go off and invent stuff, you know, and it's really good to say, no, you got to stay in your lane, you know.
Very cool. So I have one last question.
Okay.
So it's so funny to look back now, but there was a lot of skepticism when you were first cast as Batman, because you were more known for comedic roles, and that Batman role is now the standard by which others are measured. Do you have any advice for actors that are facing the challenge of overcoming typecasting, especially in today's social media age, or maybe anything particular for Robert Pattinson, who's facing the same?
It's hard now. It's always been hard, and it was something I was always really, really worried about. I just thought, well, you know, it'll catch up with me eventually. And so let me see how many different things I can do before it catches up with you, you know, and then, you know, and then eventually you just go, you know, people don't remember Paul Newman, or don't even know, Paul Newman was really a character actor, you know. If you look at his stuff when he was really young, he was playing these guys, you know, broken, you know, he was playing really fun. They're the most fun roles. And at some point, somebody must have said, dude, have you looked in the mirror? You're like ridiculously good looking. This is like, you know, this is, you know, and eventually he still played characters, but so it's always going to catch up with you. I just thought if I can get away with as many different things and many different genres as I can before people say stop it, just act like that. And I don't know that I'd have ever done it anyway, but I've managed to fool a lot of people for a long time. So it's harder now for everyone, I think, the younger actor, because the awareness of everybody, you know, you go, it's hard to dodge. You got to really, really work hard at disappearing into your role, you know. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix is a monster. The dude is like unbelievable. I defy you to show up and go, oh yeah, there's Joaquin Phoenix. You just see the guy, you know, or Daniel Day-Lewis, or you know, guys like that. You just see the person they're playing. It's hard.
They disappear into.
Yeah, it's hard. It's very, very hard.
Well, very cool. We're glad that you took the chance, because
Sorry about the cursing. I
we're...
didn't know that. Seriously, I don't like to do that when kids are around. Sorry.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here at Alamo City Comic-Con. Thank you so much for taking
Okay,
the
man.
time out.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Keaton!